Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into professional networking. And let's be honest, for most of us, it can feel like a total grind, right? Just this constant, exhausting effort. But what if I told you the single most valuable resource in your entire network is one you've probably forgotten all about?
I mean, think about it. All those coffees, all the emails, trying to meet new people while keeping up with the ones you already know, it can feel like you're just running on a networking treadmill, putting in a ton of work without really getting anywhere. It's a super common frustration. And today, we're going to dig into why that is and what the research says is a much, much smarter way to do it. So, where does all that frustration come from? Well, it turns out the problem is baked right into the way we've all been taught to think about networking. There's this fundamental trade-off we're all trying to solve.
Yeah, the conventional wisdom basically says your network is split into two camps. You've got your close friends and you've got your acquaintances. And each one comes with its own baggage, its own pros and cons.
And this is the trade-off we're all wrestling with. On one side, you have your strong ties. These are your work buddies, your trusted friends. The trust is there, you share a history. But because you're in the same world, they usually know what you know. The information is kind of redundant. Then you have your weak ties, all those acquaintances. They're fantastic for new, surprising ideas because they run in completely different circles. The problem? That deep, built-in trust just isn't there. So you're stuck. Do you go for trust or do you go for novelty?
But this is where things get really, really interesting. What if that whole dilemma is just a false choice? What if there's a secret third option that actually gives you the best of both worlds? And that third option is what researchers have started calling the forgotten connection. It's this incredibly powerful, totally overlooked part of every single person's network.
So researchers Daniel Levin, Jorge Walter, and J. Keith Murnaghan actually gave this a name. They call it a dormant tie. Now, this isn't just a weak tie. This is somebody you actually knew, maybe even knew pretty well, but you've just fallen out of touch for, say, 3 years or more. Life happens, a job change, you move to a new city, poof, they're gone.
The reason these ties are so special is captured perfectly by the famous sociologist Mark Granovetter. What he's saying here is that when you reach back out, you are not starting from zero, not even close. You're building on top of a foundation of trust and shared history that's already there. It's just, it's dormant, waiting to be woken up. So how big of a resource are we talking about here? It is massive. Think about it. The average person can only really maintain about 100 or 200 active relationships at a time. But over a lifetime, we collect thousands of these dormant ties. It's like a huge, untapped reservoir of social capital just sitting there. Okay, this all sounds great in theory, right? It's a fantastic idea. But does it actually work in the real world? Well, to find out, a team of researchers decided to put it to the test. So this team from Rutgers, George Washington University, and Northwestern put together this really elegant study. They took a group of executive MBA students and decided they were going to actually measure the value of these forgotten connections. The setup was super straightforward. First, each executive had to pick a big, important project they were working on. Then they had to choose 2 dormant contacts, people they hadn't talked to in at least 3 years, and just reach out, ask for advice on that project, and finally, they rated the advice they got back. Simple as that. And the results? They weren't just interesting. They were genuinely shocking. They really do challenge the fundamental way most of us think about networking. So the biggest takeaway? It completely blew up that old idea that you have to constantly water your relationships or they'll die. You know that saying that you have to constantly put in the effort? It turns out that might not be true. These dormant ties weren't dead at all. So check this out. The first major finding was incredible. When it came to giving novel, unexpected, useful advice, the dormant ties blew the current contacts out of the water. And it makes perfect sense when you stop and think about it. While you and your current friends have been swimming in the same pool, your dormant contacts have been off on totally different journeys, learning totally new things. Reaching out is like tapping into a whole new universe of ideas. But the real holy grail, the most powerful discovery of the entire study, came when the researchers zoomed in on one very specific type of connection.
those old, close friends you've lost touch with. The dormant strong ties. And this right here is where the magic happens. Look at this. Your current strong ties, they give you trust, but the ideas are often stale. Your current weak ties, they offer novelty, but there's no deep trust there. But look at the dormant strong ties. Bam! They delivered across the board. The efficiency of a quick reconnect, the novelty of a whole new perspective, and the deep trust of an old friend. The whole shebang. What this really means is that reaching out to that old friend is like the ultimate networking cheat code. It literally gives you the best of both worlds. You solve the dilemma, you get that deep, baked-in trust of an old friend, combined with the fresh, exciting ideas of someone brand new. Okay. I know what you might be thinking right now. This sounds a little too good to be true. There's got to be a catch, right? And that's a fair question. You're probably thinking, come on, the executives in this study must have just cherry-picked their one rockstar contact, the person they knew would give them amazing advice. It feels like a rare, one-in-a-million find. Well, the researchers were way ahead of you. They ran a follow-up study to test for that exact bias. They had executives rank their top 10 dormant contacts and then randomly told them who to reach out to. And the results were just stunning. The advice they got from their 10th choice contact was just as valuable as the advice from their number one. It's honestly incredible. As you can see here, the value you get from reconnecting just doesn't drop off. Your first choice, your 5th choice, even your 10th choice, all of them turned out to be pretty much equally valuable. This means your pool of useful, amazing dormant ties isn't just one or two people. It's incredibly deep. So let's just recap the big takeaways from all this. First, the vast majority of your network is dormant and totally untapped. Second, reaching out is super efficient and a goldmine for new ideas. Third, that trust you built with old friends, it's still there. And most importantly, this is a powerful, low-effort, high-reward strategy that pretty much anyone can use starting today. And that brings us to one final thought. In this constant, frantic search for the next new connection, we're overlooking the incredible value hidden in the people we've lost along the way. So the question for you is, who is that old friend, that old colleague that you haven't spoken to in years? Because they just might hold the key to your next big breakthrough.